Okay. My name is J. Ross Leonard. I go by Ross. My birthday is June 20th, 1945, and I served in the Vietnam War in the U.S. Air Force. I retired from the Air Force after a little over 20 years service as a major. And we're doing this recording at my home in Davis, California on December 14, 2010. The interviews are being conducted by 4 exchange students at the Davis, California High School, and this interview is being conducted as part of the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress.
Thank you. Okay. So, when were you born?
I was born in New York City in June of 1945.
Do you have any siblings?
Nope, I'm it.
And what is your parents' occupation?
My dad would have gone to medical school. He worked for a medical company, and my mom was a history major and journalism major, and she wrote for newspapers and then was a homemaker.
And what were you doing before you got into the service?
I got into service really young. I was a golf caddy while I was in high school, and then I got an appointment by my congressman to the Air Force Academy, and entered in when I was 17 in Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy, and attended the academy and graduated in the class of 1967.
And do you have any family members that are in the military, or was in the military?
No, basically that's it. And my wife's side of the family didn't have very much military service. The only interesting connection is my brother-in-law. His dad served in the German army, and luckily for him, he was fighting on the Eastern Front, and he had a really bad tooth problem, and so he was laid up for about 4 months, having to try to fix this infection in his teeth. And in the meantime, his entire company got wiped out several times over, and they kept remanning it. And by the time they shipped him back, they moved it from the Eastern Front to the Western Front. And he got to fight against the Americans, the British, and got captured and spent most of the rest of the war in England. And then after the war was over, immigrated to stay with family here in the United States. So that's my background, immediate background.
Okay. And how did you get interested in going to the military? My
dad had served in the Army, very well-decorated infantryman, had been almost killed. And I was proud of his service, and I wanted to serve my country also. And so there was the Vietnam War going on. He had served in the war, and I thought it'd be nice to be a career officer. So I went to the academy, and while I was there, they did a great job of teaching me about our country and our duty to our country, and about the Vietnam War. So I got a lot of very first-hand briefings on what we did, and I really felt it was important to serve my country.
And you said you were in a camp, but how long were you in the camp before you took yourself? In the training camp. Oh,
I went from the Air Force Academy. That's a 4-year college. It was a top-notch college. We talked about that. I was a chemistry major. And I went from there to pilot training in Big Spring, Texas, and learned to fly jet airplanes. And based on our graduation, we got to pick our airplanes, and I was able to get a combat airplane, the O-2A. And I provided a photograph of the O-2 to these ladies. It's a little Cessna 337, a wonderful little civilian airplane with a propeller in the front and a propeller in the back. And it's pressurized, the civilian version. The version we had some changes made. It had beefed up wings because we had to carry ordnance on the wings. They put foam in the fuel tanks in the wings in case a bullet went through, a wing wouldn't blow up. And that was about it. And so it wasn't ideal for flying combat in Vietnam because it was fairly underpowered. But it got the job done. If you lost the front engine with half your fuel gone and your ordnance gone, you could maintain altitude. If you lost your rear engine and your front engine was running, you were descending. And you just had to decide where you're going to descend to. And that was sort of what we did.
Okay.
I got assigned after I'd gone through pilot school and through survival school and through jungle survival school, I got assigned to Da Nang Air Base, the 20th Tactical Air Support Squadron, and my job was to fly over the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Now at the time that was all classified, and as far as the American people knew and the world knew, there were no North Vietnamese in Laos, and there were no supplies in Laos, and there was no anti-aircraft guns in Laos, and we weren't flying over Laos. And so I couldn't tell my parents what I was doing. I was telling them I was circling over Da Nang watching for rocket attacks. A lot of places was known as Rocket City. Da Nang was known as Rocket City because it was a big base, and the North Vietnamese liked to fire rockets into our base. And I used the term North Vietnamese because by the time I got to the war, because of attrition, most of the Viet Cong had died. There weren't too many really anti-government South Vietnamese left. They were pretty much wiped out. And so basically it was a fight between the South Vietnamese army and the U.S. forces helping them and the North Vietnamese. The North Vietnamese would infiltrate down out of western North Vietnam through Laos, down roads and trails, and then come back into the western side of South Vietnam, and then would engage in the fighting. And so my job was to fly over the Ho Chi Minh Trail and to look for trucks and piles of supplies. And the one thing that made my job more interesting was that just before I got there, the president had decided he wasn't going to bomb North Vietnam anymore. President Johnson decided he would just cease the bombing North Vietnam. Well, they had a whole lot of anti-aircraft guns that were using very successfully to defend North Vietnam. They didn't need North Vietnam anymore, so they brought them down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And I provided to you ladies for your presentation a picture of a twin 23mm anti-aircraft gun and a single-barrel 37mm anti-aircraft gun. They both fire the 23mm tells the diameter of the bullet, and the way they look from the ground is, even though they have muzzle suppressors, you'll see the flash of the muzzle when the gun is fired. Then for a while you don't see anything, very short while, I'm talking about parts of a second. Then, luckily for me, somehow the North Vietnamese decided they wanted to be able to track where their bullets went, and they used all tracers. Now the standard load that was used by the Russian manuals inside is every fourth or fifth round would be a tracer, because they give you an idea where your bullets are going. But that was it. Well, luckily for me, through 2 tours in Vietnam, they were kind enough to use tracers the whole time.